I'm going to give you 5 hacks for putting together an emergency savings fund. First, what exactly is it? Why do you need it? Well, emergency savings fund, you can think of it in 2 different ways. We're going to specifically look at the second, but first would just be, what if an air conditioner breaks? What if you need tires for the car? What if the car got in an accident? You've got a high deductible. Small amounts of money, things that pop up you might not be worried about. What we're going to talk about is emergency savings specifically for the occasion that you might lose your job. Or if there's 2 of you, you both lose your job, whatever it may be, the income drops significantly. Why? You don't hear a lot about what's going on in the economy through the daily news. There's so many different topics. But look at this, Amazon laying off 15,000 high-paying jobs. CVS laying off 3,000 high-paying jobs. There are multiple articles like this because this is happening constantly. With respect to the economy, you're going to hear it's good, it's bad. There's numbers coming out on how many people have been employed every month, and then the numbers are revised. So we really don't know what's going on, but regardless, what about having an emergency savings to be able to pay your bills if unfortunately you were to lose your job? So how do you do that? I'm going to show you 5 simple ways to get started. There's the longer, complicated way of putting together your budget and going through all those things. And when people get started, they say, I don't want to do that. So first and foremost, let's just assume that you either want a 3 or a 6, ideally 6 months of money to pay for your monthly expenses. So let's get started. I have 3 different videos that go into great detail. These videos will pop up at the end, and also in the description there'll be links. So the first hack is just sit down and write for each one of these large categories, how much do you think you're going to spend? Throw in there clothing, entertainment, you name it. The second hack to make it an actual what do you spend is real simple. How do you typically spend? Most people these days don't use cash. Let's just assume that you're using a bank debit card and maybe a credit card. You go online, you log in, and you can download in an Excel spreadsheet all of your expenses for a month. Pick a month. Let's say it's February. If you use a credit card during that month, do the same thing with the credit card. Then you just total the rows, add them together, and you'll know exactly what you spend during that month. Let's say you do that real fast. You download it for 3 different months, average it out. Now you know. That's a hack to get the actual amount you spend every month without sitting there and writing everything down. Just download 30 days, add it for if you have a debit card and credit card for the 30 days, add those together, do the next 30 days, do the next 30 days, or do 90 days and then divide by 3. That is a fast way of knowing exactly how much you need every month. Great. Now we know how much we need every month. Here's the second video. Now that you've got what you actually spend, I would suggest that you go through and you categorize it, what you've downloaded, and you put things into categories. Your grocery items, your entertainment items, because in order to make changes, we'll talk about that in a second, you need to know where the majority of your spending's going. Those are your actual numbers. Then next to it, you can say, okay, let's create a budget. In other words, our entertainment's around $400 a month. Maybe we want to make it $350 a month. Let's try to limit our things and say, what could we ideally live on? So now that you've got your actual numbers, this hack is real simple. How long do you want it to last for? I'd like it to last 3 months. I'd like it to last 6 months. Great. If your number is on average, you're spending $6,000 a month because you downloaded 90 days, you divide it by 3, and you say, okay, on average, I'm spending $6,000 a month. I want it to last 6 months. Just multiply. 6 times 6 is 36,000. That's how much you need. After you go through that exercise, you might say to yourself, that's a lot of money. I don't have that much, and I'm not sure how long it's going to take me to save that much. Okay, the third video. This is about decreasing your expenses. I'm going to give you 2 different hacks to decrease your expenses so that you can make that emergency fund last longer. In other words, let's say you want to last 6 months. You spend $6,000 a month, so you need $36,000. Well, if you're able to substantially decrease, you might be able to get to 6 months on $24,000. If you're spending instead of $6,000 a month, maybe you're only spending $4,000 a month. So let's talk about that. Earlier we mentioned taking the items when you've got your list of what you spent for that month and putting them into categories. Okay, these 3 are groceries, these 4 are entertainment, and just add them up. then you can look at them and say, what can we remove? And let's do that now. You don't have to remove the things. You don't have to stop spending money, but you already have a list. So if you were to walk in on Friday and before you left, they said, here, you're fired, don't come back. Well, you want to have a plan so that you can implement it immediately. For example, you might go through, and in this video here, I was able to go through a basic budget where they're spending about $6,000 and show that how quickly they could save and spend $1,700 less every month. It was made up of multiple things: eating out, entertainment, clothes, streaming services, even possibly removing a car if you have to or selling it and doing a ride share or a bus, or maybe your spouse helping you. Remember, this isn't going to last forever. Hopefully you're going to get another job. The idea is, how long can we make that last? Because it's not helpful if it takes you 7 months to get a job, but you only have enough money to last 5 months. So you really need to make it extend, because you don't know how long you're going to need it, and you don't want to miss certain payments, like a car payment. Wake up the next morning and the car was towed or repossessed. The fifth hack is the most interesting one, and it's also explained in more detail in this video, and I'll leave it for the video. But to give you an idea, you can do things that a lot of people haven't thought of. For example, let's say, and you can do this with multiple loans. Let's say you have a car loan. You've maybe paid off a year or 2 years of your car loan. You have an $800 a month payment. You must make that payment or the car can be repossessed. Okay, well, you've paid it for 2 years. You can refinance that car. Now, the downside is you might refinance, let's say, for another 60 months. You're thinking, well, I only have 3 years to pay it off at $800 a month. Why would I do 60 months? Well, because they might say, well, if you do 60 months on what you owe, which is less than what you paid, then your payment, let's say, goes to $500. Okay, well, why would I do that? Well, you can still make an $800 payment every month, just like you were making before. However, if something bad happens, you were to lose your job, since your payment on the refinance car is actually only $500, you can drop down to the $500, only pay $500 a month, and the car won't be repossessed because you're making the actual payment. Okay, so what's the upside? Well, the upside is you're making an $800 payment like you've always made, and if you need to, you can drop to $500 and you won't lose your car. What's the downside? Well, now you've refinanced it for a longer period of time. It depends on the interest rates. You may end up paying a little more for the car because of the extra interest payments. Now, since you're making $800 instead of $500, that additional $300 goes right to principal. So you are going to pay the new loan faster when you're making the 800 payments, but odds are it'll cost a little more money. I call that, because I've done this before, I call that my own insurance. In other words, I'm paying a little extra in the interest. However, it allows me to drop down. You can actually do this with a home mortgage, with a car, anything that you have a loan on, and the video goes into more detail. So there's the 5 hacks. You want to get an emergency savings together. I highly recommend it.